Now, outsourcing to programmers is very similar to outsourcing to designers, but there are a few differences you need to consider. First of all, when you are talking to the programmer for the first time in the video conference and asking him or her questions, make sure you know which programming language or languages they specify on. Are they iOS or Android programmers, or both? How many apps have they done, if any? Can you see some of their work? Now, I would also like to mention that if the person is not an expert in the programming language you need, then it's not the end of the world. If they understand the programming language, or if they know other programming languages that are kind of similar, and they have a good, hard-working attitude, then they will do fine because they will learn quickly. What is most important is the attitude. Us programmers, we can be extremely good at procrastinating. So you gotta make sure to find someone with the right attitude. I will talk more about how to manage both programmers and designers on the next section. So, don't worry, we'll cover that. But you also want to be very specific with what you want, just like with the designers, but even more so with the programmer than with the designer, because the programmer needs to know every single detail. Don't let him or her improvise or assume, because if they don't know exactly what you want and they change something in a way they think is right, it can alter or change the functionality of the app in a way in which you did not intend at all. So make sure to be very clear and very specific about the important features of the app. Also, depending on the size of the app, he or she could start before the graphics are ready, or may have to wait until they're done. For example, in an app like Piano Tiles, it would be unnecessary to have the programmer start programming the app without the graphics, because it's just so simple. But in an app like, for example, Flappy Bird, he or she could start working on the gameplay and just use squares and rectangles instead of, the bird and the pipes. And then when the graphics are ready, just add them in. But you are the one that will need to determine if the programmer should start early or not. If you ask him or her, they will most likely say, yeah, I can start work without the graphics, because they can take longer and they will charge you more. So it's up to you to determine when it's advantageous to start before graphics are ready and when it is not good. Finally, here's where you have to become very good at cutting costs. Make sure you understand every single aspect about how the programmer is charging you. How much for every extra view or screen, buttons, labels, how much for certain features like in-app purchases or for showing alerts or showing ads. If you know these things, then when you are thinking about the design and talking it over with your designer, you can come up with ways of minimizing the programming costs by having a more basic design, for example. Also, the more apps the programmer does, the less work he or she will have to do in future apps. What do I mean by this? Well, at first, if you ask him or her to build an entire app with in-app purchases, ads, alerts, social sharing, etc., it will take some time. But when you ask him or her to do the next app, the programmer won't rewrite everything. He or she will just copy paste or import the in-app purchases code, the code to run ads or the code for alerts, etc., from the previous apps, and will take less time and less effort. If you understand this, then you can maybe start cutting costs with your programmer as time progresses and you do more apps. So, maybe after a few apps, you can ask him, hey, how much are you charging me for in-app purchases? And, if they say $100 or $50 or $10, whatever they say, you can be like, yeah, but you already have them from previous apps. You've already done them. So all you have to do is use the same code. So why is it so expensive? And then just talk it over and negotiate a deal.